You can learn to speak any language if you do it right. Most people who try to learn a language never get fluent. It's not really your fault. Let's say you want to learn a language, but you don't know how you should do it. So you start looking for ways to learn. And what do you find first? The first answers you'll find are the things most people are doing. The problem is that the most popular learning methods are a complete waste of time. So you try learning the language for a few months or even years, and eventually you give up, thinking you're simply not good at languages because you've barely made any progress. Or you don't give up and you keep trying to learn the language for the rest of your life, but you always stay at a beginner level. And because most people you know who are trying to learn the language are also in the same situation, you end up thinking that that's how language learning is supposed to be. This is what happens to 90% of people who try to learn a language by going to classes or using grammar books. This is the traditional way of learning, and it almost never works because it's a very unnatural way to learn. It has very little to do with how we really use the language. It's also quite boring and you have to attend classes, so staying consistent long term becomes difficult for most people. But it gets worse. Language apps like Duolingo are much worse. They are essentially video games. They're designed to keep you hooked, not to help you learn the language. They give you artificial and meaningless goals, like keeping a streak alive or getting a certain amount of points. And a lot of people get so invested in their streaks and video game points that they forget what the real goal actually was. I mean, learning the language. And after years of using the app every single day, they still can't have a basic conversation or understand the language at all. And finally, another method that's become really popular these days is so-called immersion. People try to do this by either moving to the country or by watching lots of YouTube videos in the language they're trying to learn. Neither of those approaches works very well. Trying to learn a language by moving to the country where they speak it almost never works. Because apart from all the challenges in moving to a foreign country, the problem with this approach is that living in the country doesn't automatically mean living in the language. Most people who move abroad end up living in an expat bubble, or not having much of a social life at all, especially if they move to the country without already speaking the language. Meeting people to spend time with is not easy even in your own language, unless you move to a country and work with locals who only speak their own language. Moving to the country won't help you learn it, because if you're working in English online and you spend most of your free time online on social media or watching videos, when is that immersion actually happening? So most people living abroad end up having just a few short interactions in the local language per week, with the same ones over and over again, and that's it. So after years of living in the country, they're still at a beginner level. And a lot of people also try to learn by immersion by watching YouTube videos. This is the so-called comprehensible input method, and it has become really popular because it promises results with no effort. But this approach also has some serious problems. First of all, it's really, and I do mean really, time-consuming. You need to watch thousands of hours of videos to be able to understand well. And if you don't know a lot of words already, you won't understand anything except very basic videos for beginners. And you learn new words really slowly, which means you'll have to keep watching those slow, boring videos for beginners for years before you can even try content that's a little bit more interesting. And that's not even the main problem with this approach. The main problem is that you cannot learn to speak a language without doing a lot of speaking practice. A language is not only about knowing the words or the grammar. Speaking means coming up with things to say fast enough. And it's also a physical skill. Your mouth needs to be used to the language. It needs to have enough practice speaking the language in complete sentences and with the right pronunciation. Those are active skills, and you can only learn them with practice. You will never get good at speaking a language just by watching videos. So, how should you actually learn a language? Can you learn it fast? Yes, you can. Learning a language is very simple. You only need to develop two key skills: the ability to understand the language and the ability to speak it. These are the only two things that matter in real life, and therefore you should focus on the activities that help you get better at those two skills. And for this, there are three main things you need to do. You need to learn a lot of words, and even better, a lot of sentences, practical, useful sentences that you want to use in real life. Then you need to do a lot of listening practice. And of course, you need to do a lot of speaking practice. And that's it. That's all you need to do to be able to understand a language and to be able to speak it fluently. If you do these three things every single day, learn sentences, lots of listening and lots of speaking, you'll be able to understand and speak a language rather fast. And you might be thinking, how do I do this? Very simple. You use language islands. What are language islands? Language islands are groups of personalized sentences for a specific situation or interaction, or for a specific conversation topic. If you prepare and learn the sentences you're most likely to use, you'll improve your speaking skills much faster than by learning random sentences in apps or doing grammar exercises. You simply have to write sentences you want to be able to say in real life. Then you translate them into the target language, you create audio files, and you listen and repeat those sentences over and over again until you know them by heart and you can say them automatically. And this is the fastest way to learn to speak a foreign language. Any language. If you want to learn how to do this, check out the link in the description.